Tyler O'Neill is still primed for a big season after he mashes a home run for the Red Sox only offense in their loss against the Rays on Monday.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and a current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And you want to know the best part? It's free, so you might as well check it out, right? Locked On Red Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that is your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox, the show where I feel the same emotions as you do. And if you're frustrated about last night's Red Sox loss, I am too. Imagine not having your favorite baseball team determine your mood for the day. I absolutely cannot relate. So if you can connect and relate to that, this is absolutely the show for you. And while I have you here, be sure to tune into the show on Thursday as I am dropping the second episode of a 10-week series honoring the 2004 Boston Red Sox for the 20th anniversary. I will have a member of that 2004 team in Lenny DiNardo joining me on the show on Thursday to talk about that season, so you definitely will not want to miss that. But one thing that you probably wish you could have missed was last night's Red Sox game, in which they started a 4-game series against the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Red Sox took a 5-3 loss. And it was more of the same with this Red Sox team. Just could not get a lot of offense going in general. Only recorded 8 hits as a team. And the problem was that they were all scattered. They couldn't really get anything going. Couldn't get a lot of base traffic all within the same inning to the point where they could pile on a lot of runs. The Rays pitching looked very good. Their starter was a guy in Zach Eflin who pitched well. 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned runs. He recorded 2 strikeouts. So he looked pretty good. And then their bullpen finished the job for them. 3 more pitchers came in for the Rays and did not give up any runs. So the Red Sox runs were all condensed and they all happened in the first inning. Now, this game was interesting because it started off kind of rough for Kutter Crawford and the Red Sox because the top of the first inning was very long. Kutter struggled to get out of it, gave up 3 runs just in that first inning. But then in the bottom half of the inning, the Red Sox responded and scored 3 runs on their own thanks to a 3-run moonshot by Tyler O'Neill that was absolutely crushed. So they did a pretty good job of responding. So the way that those base runners got on was Wilyer Abreu hit a single to left field, and then Devers hit a double to right field, which advanced Abreu to third base. And then O'Neill just crushed that 426-foot homer to tie the game at 3. And things were looking up for the Red Sox at that point, and I said, nice. Tyler O'Neill tied the game. The Red Sox answered right away, and then they could not score the rest of the game. So basically, if you take out that 1 inning, they get shut out the rest of the game. And it's frustrating because this offense feels like it's still missing a big piece, and that big piece is Tristan Casas. So hopefully he's able to come back sooner than the timeline that they're expecting, because this offense desperately needs him. He provides a spark for this offense, and he's able to connect and get the job done, because Dominic Smith certainly is not getting the job done at first base. Went 0 for 4 on the night. He's batting just 138 with a 167 on base percentage and 172 slugging. So he certainly is not a guy that I want to see in that spot for very long. So I'm just holding out hope that Casas can come back sooner than when they think. But Tyler O'Neill certainly has been a bright spot in the Red Sox lineup this season. He's overall had a very good year, and he hadn't generated a hit in a couple games. So last night, he really needed that hit to hopefully get himself back on track to where he wants to be. He went 1 for 3 in the game, but in 2 out of the 3 games against the Nationals, he didn't record a hit. He went 0 for 3 on both of the Saturday and Sunday games against Washington. So since it had been a couple games since his last hit, he really needed to have another breakthrough, and crushing a monster home run is a great way to break out of that mini slump. Generally, he's recorded a hit in the majority of the games that he's played in. He did spend some time on the injured list, so that was also a factor, but he started off the season great, and since he's come back from the injured list, he's looked pretty good as well. His batting average is now a 265. He did go from a 264 to a 265 after the home run, so he did jump up a little bit, but he's generally been able to keep his batting average over 250 for the entirety of the month of May. May 2nd, he had a batting average of 309, and it dropped from there, but it still stayed within the range of what the Red Sox like to see from him. So currently, he does have that 265 batting average, and his on-base percentage is a 381, and slugging is a 584. So overall, he has been very productive at the plate. He was the DH in the game on Monday, and it seems like the Red Sox view him as a viable option for the DH, at least for while Yoshida is injured, because Devers DHs sometimes and O'Neill has been DHing sometimes, so it seems like they're kind of primarily platooning between those two to be DH, and every once in a while somebody else will serve as the DH in a game. But O'Neill can take at bats as the DH or when he's playing in the outfield, and he's been overall pretty reliable for this offense. But the problem is he still lately hasn't consistently been able to get that big hit. So that's something that I'm looking for from him moving forward. The home run was huge on Monday. Can he continue to generate big hits with runners on base? So that's the next thing that I want to look for from him moving forward, is how is he going to be able to maintain this level of consistency that he's hitting at? And is he only productive when the bases are empty? And can he drive in those runs the way that the Red Sox are looking for him to do? So he produced really the only big sense of offense in the game for the Boston Red Sox. I really like O'Neill and his ability to utilize all parts of Fenway. His bat is so Fenway friendly. He can hit those home runs, and he's hitting to all different parts of the ballpark, and it truly makes for an overall good hitter for the Red Sox to have in this lineup, and I expect that to continue for him. He's definitely at the point now where he's trying to maintain a level of competitiveness, and he wants to make an impact in every at bat. That's obviously not going to happen, but it's a good mindset to have. But he makes an impact more often than not, and that's something that we love to see. And by making impact, it doesn't always mean get a big hit. Maybe it means drawing a walk when the Red Sox have other runners on base and they're trying to set up some scoring opportunities, or he is grounding out but it's scoring a run. So I'm looking for more of those opportunities for him to take advantage of, and not necessarily always relying on the long ball. But I like Tyler O'Neill overall as a hitter. He's continuing to absolutely crush the baseball, and I knew that home run ball was gone as soon as it hit the bat. Just the sound of it was beautiful, and it's a typical exciting baseball sound. So hopefully he can continue to stay in the competitive nature that he's in and be able to continue to provide some good offense for this Red Sox team, because they are going to need it moving forward as they look to develop some sort of consistently competitive offense moving forward. Coming up, though, I'm going to be talking about the Red Sox starter in Monday's game who didn't have his best start of the season, but overall did enough to get the job done. So that's coming up. If you're looking for a fun and exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, you should definitely head to PrizePicks today. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For baseball games, if you have a player who registers 2 plate appearances or less, PrizePicks will have your back and not count that as a loss, which is incredibly golden of them to do. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. I mean, we're all busy. We all have things we have to do, especially with work and other tasks during the day, responsibilities that we have. But it takes so little time and you can win a ton of money. So you might as well just do it. Just download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 if you use code LOCKEDONMLB when you download the app today. You absolutely will not be disappointed in it. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Sports Today will definitely keep you in the loop on all things going on in sports, so you definitely should check it out. Kutter Crawford made the start on the mound for the Boston Red Sox in their 5-3 loss versus the Tampa Bay Rays on Monday, which, by the way, puts the Red Sox at a 21-20 record. They're back to lingering right at that 500 mark. The Rays are 21-21 now, so they're only a half game behind the Red Sox, who currently sit in third place in the division. And not that people expected this team to be much over 500 this season, but I would like to see them stay over 500 right now so that they at least have hope for when their injured players do come back, and it gives them a sense of excitement as they approach the rest of the season. And that really starts with their guys coming back and being healthy. And I think now that Garrett Whitlock is really the only starting pitcher who's still on the IL, now that they have 4 of their starters back, that will be a significant help in terms of the rotation and the bullpen's health, because they don't need to overwork guys. But one pitcher who is part of this and hasn't gotten injured this year is Kutter Crawford, who's had a dominant season overall. He made the start for the Red Sox on Monday and went 6 innings, giving up 7 hits and 4 earned runs. He did strike out 6 and walked 1 in the outing. This was not his best start of the season by any means. It's actually the most earned runs he's given up in a start this year, the next most being 3 on April 26th versus the Cubs. He's been averaging 0 or 1 earned runs per start that he's been giving up. So this guy has been tremendous. I mean, his ERA was below 1 all the way up until April 20th. And then in that start against the Cubs on April 26th, when he gave up the 3 runs, that's when his ERA got bumped up to a 1.35. So those are very competitive ace caliber numbers that he had been putting up. And then last night's start against the Rays put his ERA up to a 2.24. But even so, that's still a very good number. And I now am sitting here saying, it was a rough outing for him, but not even to the extent that you would think. Because, yes, the numbers maybe seem like it was overall a mess of a start, but it really was not. The first inning was a tough go for him. The Rays were stringing together a lot of hits. He couldn't record the outs and gave up 3 of those 4 earned runs in that inning. But then he really settled down after that. And then going through 6 innings, he only gave up 1 more run after that. So he really did settle down for the most part and started to look again like the Kutter Crawford that we all know that is dominant. And I think when he went out there for this start, the Rays were all over him because they were ready. They were coming into this game excited, antsy, and they got the bats moving right away. But it's a good sign that rather than crumbling in that situation, he was able to bounce back and finish the start very effectively after that moving forward. And that's something that I look for in the Red Sox pitching staff is who falls apart under the pressure and who is able to overcome that and settle back in and continue the outing. And after that first inning, I honestly was not sure that Kutter would be able to go that deep into the game just because he threw 34 pitches in that first inning. So I was saying this could be one of those outings where he gets pulled really early and the bullpen is heavily utilized. And luckily that did not happen because he was so effective the rest of the time. And one thing I like about Kutter Crawford is that he stuck to what has worked for him all season long. The pitches that he finds to be his strengths, like that sweeper, like that slider, he is heavily utilizing those pitches still to keep opposing hitters on their toes because that's what works for him. And he doesn't shy away from that. Even during that first inning when he was struggling, he was maintaining his identity as a pitcher. And I like that Andrew Bailey has really instilled in him and other pitchers on the staff that they need to know their strengths and capitalize on those. And they're not always going to have great starts. Every pitcher has a bad start. It's part of the game. That's why they play so many games a season. There's so much opportunity to bounce back from that. Even Pedro Martinez had bad starts. Everybody has days like that. And Kutter Crawford, to me, has given us enough examples this season of him being dominant and him being reliable to the point where I am not worried moving forward about his ability to bounce back and be at the level of dominance that he's displayed for a good portion of this season. And especially because of the fact that 1 inning was the primary length of his struggles, it shows to me that he has that capability and resiliency to say, okay, this wasn't my inning, but how can I make this better the next time around? And Alex Cora was able to spare his bullpen a little bit more because of that. So he overall to me is still a very good pitcher. I'm intrigued by his ability to keep teams on their toes. He has a 2-2 record on the season, and it's unfortunate that he had to take the loss in the game because ultimately he did give up that go-ahead run on a sacrifice fly that put the Rays up 4-3 when he was still pitching. So that is definitely disappointing for him. But overall, looking back on this outing, it's hard to say that he didn't have a good start because yes, it was not fantastic, but it also was better than it might appear on the stat sheet. So I still have full confidence in Kutter. Do I feel like he's going to be the Red Sox ace? No, not necessarily. I still feel like Brian Bayo eventually is going to be that guy, but Crawford is putting up numbers right now that are certainly keeping him in the conversation of being one of the more competitive pitchers in the American League and even in baseball. And I don't think people would have thought before the season started that they'd be able to have that conversation about him. So he's only human. He was due for a start that wasn't as good as the others, and that happened to happen. He got that out of his system on Monday, and he's able to now move forward from it and continue to pitch the way that he has been pitching. I don't want him to lose his sense of himself or the type of pitcher he is, and that's something again that I think Andrew Bailey has really worked with these pitchers on, is even if you don't have a good start, don't let that impact the way that you're pitching unless it becomes a recurring problem. So if his next outing he struggles again early on, then we can start to look at, okay, it's been a couple games now where he in the first inning has struggled, so what adjustments can be made? Is there something with his pregame routine that he's been doing that he should be changing so that he's more prepared for the first inning? So you really need more than one outing to dissect those types of problems. Overall, though, he did what he had to do. It was really just his offense that could not do generally what they needed to do to get him the run support that he needed, even though he was keeping them in the game. So I'm pinpointing this loss primarily to the fact that the Red Sox didn't score after the first inning, and that is the primary issue with the way that the Red Sox lost this game. But I'm still Team Kutter Crawford. I still trust that he'll be able to pitch better. We'll see how that goes, and hopefully he is able to have a great start in his next outing so that people don't start to get overly concerned, because again, if he starts to string together multiple outings where he's not looking as good as he was, then we can start to talk about some changes that need to be made. But go Kutter Crawford. I'm hoping that he continues this level of dominance, because this pitching rotation has certainly benefited a lot from it. Coming up, I'm going to be talking about another pitcher who came into the game for Boston and why Alex Cora might have kept him in the game even when he showed some signs of struggle. I know finding the right life insurance policy can be so incredibly stressful. I remember when I first turned 26 and got off my parents' benefits plan, I had to enroll for the first time in my own benefits through work, and it was the most stressful thing because I didn't know anything really about life insurance or how it really worked, and people had to explain to me what it's for and why people should have it. But Policygenius will have you covered when it comes to finding the right life insurance policy for you and help it feel less time consuming and less overwhelming. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. You can talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step, and you can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. I'm telling you, if you're new to that process of enrolling in benefits or finding the right life insurance policy for you, it can certainly be stressful, so Policygenius can definitely help eliminate that for you. You should also subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, as we as a network have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. First of all, who doesn't love free? You might as well take advantage of that. And second of all, it'll keep you updated in all things going on in sports. So be sure to subscribe to that today. In the Boston Red Sox 5-3 loss versus the Tampa Bay Rays on Monday, several pitchers made an appearance. Crawford did pitch 6 strong innings, so Alex Cora was probably happy that he was able to stretch him out for that long so he didn't have to use as many bullpen arms. Kenley Jansen was not available because he had pitched the last couple games, so that's what happens. You can't have every pitcher available every night. So the circumstance is going to be different every game, and you want to try to utilize your bullpen in a smart way so that guys, when they are not available, don't feel like they're backing the team into a wall because they can't use them. So after Kutter Crawford came out, Greg Weissert came in and pitched 2 innings, and then Chase Anderson pitched 1 inning, looked fantastic, gave up 0 earned runs, and struck out 1. He had a very easy peasy inning. His ERA is a 4.34, so he hasn't had the best time so far in Boston. Definitely been little bit up and down for him, but he looked good. But Greg Weissert came in and pitched 2 innings, giving up 3 hits and 1 earned run. He did also record 2 strikeouts. Now, Weissert has been good this season prior to this game. He had a 1.17 ERA over 16 games in which he made an appearance heading into the game, and then after Monday's game, his ERA went up to a 1.56, which is still good, but giving up an earned run in that game bumped up his ERA. And there were a lot of people that were talking about him and why he was still in the game when he was, because he pitched the 7th inning for the Red Sox, and he did give up a single in that inning by Randy Arozarena, but then Arozarena was actually caught stealing because Connor Wong made a very nice throw down to second base, and he was caught stealing. So then at the end of the day, Weissert only faced 3 men in the inning. So that helped him in that inning, but then he came in again for the 8th, which was fine because overall he didn't throw that many pitches in the 7th, so it made sense to bring him back out for the 8th. And then he gave up a leadoff double in the inning to Josh Lau. And at that point, after he gave up the double, I thought there was a chance that Alex Cora was going to pull him just because he did have some other options out of the pen, and you don't want the inning to get messy when you're down by 1 run and your team has the chance to come back. The last thing you want to do is give up runs in that inning and make it out of reach for the Red Sox. So he gave up a leadoff double, and then he walked the next batter, which was a pinch hitter. So then there were runners on first and second, and I said, wow, Alex Cora definitely is taking a bit of a gamble here by keeping him in, but he's definitely hoping that he can get out of this. But then the next batter hit a double, which scored Lau and moved Shentone over to third. So the Rays were able to get their insurance run out of the deal, and that was huge because scoring an insurance run in the top of the 8th inning changes the outlook so much in terms of the Red Sox chances of coming back. 4-3 going into the bottom of the 8th looks a lot better than 5-3. 2 runs sometimes feels like a milestone, especially in a game like that in which the Red Sox weren't really producing much offense after the first inning. So I said, okay, wow, now he still isn't being taken out of the game. And then he was able to get the next 3 guys out on a strikeout swinging, another strikeout swinging, and then a ground out. So after that double that scored a run, then he breezed through the rest of the inning. But Alex Cora was not moving from that dugout, so he was clearly wanting to keep him in no matter what happened. And the big reasoning to me for that was because they have a long stretch of games here coming up. They play Monday through Sunday this week, and then they play another series Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So their next day off isn't until a week from Thursday. So that's a long stretch of games in which he needs their arms to be healthy and be available. So if you have the opportunity to stretch out a pitcher, then you do that. And for Alex Cora, he probably knew originally going into the game that Weissert was going to be available and was ready to throw him in the game. And in his mind, when it was time for that 8th inning to come around, since he didn't throw that many pitches in the 7th, he said, okay, he gets the 8th inning. And unless it gets very bad, I'm not pulling him, and he's finishing that inning. For example, after that RBI double that scored a run, if he still continued to give up base runners and wasn't able to connect for those 3 outs after that, and everything was getting to be a huge mess, then he probably pulls him, because eventually it gets to the point where enough is enough. But clearly Alex Cora didn't have plans of warming somebody else up and using somebody else, and it makes a lot of sense in that situation because of how many consecutive games the Red Sox have over the next week and a half. So in his mind as a manager, he was saying this is his inning regardless, and that is the thought process I feel he had. When you play 162 games in a season, you have to think about the health of your players in the longer term. And especially with all of these bullpen games that the Red Sox have had lately because of their starters being injured, these guys have been putting in a lot of work on that mound. And whenever you have the opportunity to let a reliever pitch 2 innings, you take that opportunity if you can. And the fact that he coasted through the rest of that top of the 8th inning was great news for Alex Cora, because then he could put Anderson in for the top of the 9th, and that ended up being a very smooth inning, and he didn't throw a lot of pitches, so he can now be available again tomorrow too. So everything was this spiral effect of Kutter Crawford luckily cleaning things up after the 1st inning and being able to pitch through 6, and then bringing in Weissert, who had a pretty smooth overall 7th inning and then struggled a bit in the 8th, but was still able to finish the inning, then leading to Chase Anderson pitching after that. And the Red Sox know that, if they were up by a run or two, the score was reversed. They were up 5-3 instead of the Rays up 5-3. Kenley Jansen would not be available to close out the game. So Chase Anderson likely was going to be that guy regardless, depending on maybe the circumstance. If they bring him in and then he gives up a couple base runners, they have somebody else in mind to pitch. But it was a well-known thing that Jansen wasn't going to be able to pitch, so then Cora had to play with what he had. So I think regardless, going into the game, he knew that Weissert was going to be that first guy in relief after Crawford came out of the game, and he knew that he had to get 1 to 2 innings out of him, because the last thing that he wants is to gamble on somebody who has pitched a lot lately going out there and pitching an inning and forcing it, and then that pitcher is more fatigued later on. So he was totally thinking about the long term, the fact that they have a lot of games coming up over the next 10 days, so they need to be able to give their guys rest, since they don't have the built-in rest days until next Thursday. So I think it was a good call by Alex Cora. Yes, he started to struggle. Was it a risk? Absolutely, but it was a risk that Cora knew he had to and was willing to take for the sake of his guys moving forward and keeping them healthy for their future outings. So at the end of the day, he only had to use 3 pitchers, one of which only pitched 1 smooth inning, so he can be available again tonight. So it's definitely ideal that he did that way and that things worked out in his favor. So sometimes you have to think beyond what you see on the field and think about what the manager might be thinking in their head. And in this case, he knows he has to look out for the longer term situation of his bullpen and even the rest of this series. If the Red Sox are going to be competitive in this series and either split or take 3 of 4, he needs to make sure his guys are readily available. So props to Cora for that. I like the decision. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the inning could have been a lot worse than it was. So Weissert was able to be effective and get out of it. But anyway, hopefully the Red Sox do take game 2 of the series tonight. I'm looking forward to it. As always, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.